absolutely
Are
is. Good
are
man.
are we recording?
Yeah,
Yes.
but I'll edit it out.
Howdy, all.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Another episode of the Skookum Session Roundtable. This will be episode 9. Got a interesting topic for y'all tonight, and I'm sure we're going to catch backlash on this one, which, hey, what else is new, right?
That's not counting the introduction backlash, right?
Yeah, we'll just have to wait after that one.
We're just having fun.
Yeah. We kind of wanted to get into, I mentioned feeding these things, and, Travis and I ran into a situation the other night where we had an interview and someone's having some problems, and, directly related to that. And Gary made a good point, the whole habituation thing, period. In my opinion, definitely not a wise thing to do. With the feeding end, first of all, you're going to take, I don't think it's fair to the animal. You're going to get them, they get adjusted to, grabbing what you leave out. And then, naturally, you're going to take away from their, natural abilities, not abilities, but their motivation, if you will, to hunt on their own. It's not fair. Second of all, say, okay, you're feeding a group of these things, right? And decide to sell your house. Someone else moves in and they wonder why they've got 9-foot hairy ape-like creatures running around their house, screaming in the windows and shit. So, with that being said, who wants to give their thoughts on that one? John, I think you'd be a good, interesting first candidate on that one.
Me?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah, of course.
Right. Everybody's family has one of these. They call them brother-in-laws or something like that. I mean, if you've got someone in your family that is always coming around borrowing money, needing a place to live, and you give it to them, they continue to come around for money. They continue to come around for grub. They continue to come around. They or an alcoholic, and it's like, oh man, I just be all right. I'm getting through it okay. Now that's just on a family level. You feed a cat outside, especially a feral cat. That sucker will not stop coming back. He will be there waiting on you as a bib around his neck and a fork and a knife. I mean, they're right there. A feral dog, same exact way. Opportunists. All right. So why somebody would ever think that if these things exist, that an 800-pound apex predator won't take advantage of being an opportunist like a bear does? A bear will do the same thing.
That's a perfect example.
A raccoon will do the same thing. A possum. How many times are they in your trash?
Deer. I mean, anything.
Okay, now let's put any one of us on the street. What are we going to do? I mean, hey, nothing like dumpster diving behind a restaurant, right?
You're right, though.
Okay.
I mean,
what makes
what it is. I mean,
what makes these any different? What would make this any different than any other animal, mammal, fish, bird, reptile? What would it make it any different than anything else? Bugs, insects. So these are a Bigfoot's supposed to be different? No. Gifting, feeding, bad idea. Really bad idea. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Beautiful. Gary.
Well, he said, what makes these things anything different? My first thought is 10 foot tall, 800 pounds with the intelligence of a subhuman and being able to rip a car in two and look you straight in the face and growl at you. To me, we're kind of in a situation like that at our research area where my father had inadvertently over years habituated them, and
yeah, that happens.
we're dealing with the repercussions. I think a lot of people don't know what they're doing. Living out in the country, how many people throw the scraps in their backyard? Being up north as much as I did, and of course, you guys up north know that you don't store your food outside. You always bag your food and hang it. With bears, it's down here in the South, that's not a common practice, man. We just store the stuff on the table and everything else. And we don't know inadvertently if we're going to be habituating one of these. But I don't look at as a bad thing. What I look at as a bad thing is these folks that are predominantly gifting and consciously habitualizing the target species. Because to me, they don't understand the repercussions that can happen. Have you ever seen a 3-year-old kid throw a temper tantrum?
Oh yeah.
Okay, you have, let's say you have an 800-pound, 10-foot tall 3-year-old kid throwing a temper tantrum. What's going to happen? And
they get ugly.
Absolutely, and I've heard too many reports of it coming to that.
Absolutely. Yep. Travis, we had a conversation about that today, about people just not understanding the repercussions and how serious they can actually get. Severity. You put it perfectly. The severity of the situation at hand.
Yep.
Well, what discussion? I've had so many different discussions. It was our show the other night that we went live. We was discussing the complications of habituation and things that can happen with it. And people don't understand that you're drastically changing the behavior of the target species.
Yes.
There is no other way of putting it. You're drastically changing. They're going to come to that, just like John said, they're going to come to that easy food source before they're going to go collect their own. Not only are we looking at that, but we're looking, if you're giving them processed food, these animal stomachs are not, normally they're not used to doing this. You could inadvertently, like if you give a dog chocolate, it'll kill them. We don't know what we're doing to this species by doing this. We don't know what it's going to do to their internal systems either.
You give them some kind of food that'll mess with their teeth. Now all of a sudden you got one that's got a toothache.
Absolutely.
Who's going to pull it?
Oh, not me.
No.
Well, I mean, you can be opening a whole can of worms. My daddy, he's head engineering for a telecommunications company, so he travels a lot globally. And he's had guys come in from China. They have a lot of business interest over there. These guys come in, I mean, they're sick as a dog the whole time they're here because they're eating our food. And they don't eat the kind of processed food with the high fat content, salt. And I mean, we're talking about these are human beings now in the modern day and age that can't handle just that different culturally in food. So, I mean, you're talking about a species that typically is going to be eaten, hopefully naturally, hunter-gatherer type of deal, what they can catch, kill, forage. And then all of a sudden you're giving them fried table scraps and peanut butter and sweets and, but not only that, like Gary said, I mean, like here, I mean, yeah, I throw scraps out in my yard. I take it out the edge of the yard and I throw it out. My dogs get most of it. What they don't want is typically like, fruit that's gone bad, vegetable stuff that they don't want, But I'm not intentionally going out there trying to feed one of these things or leave them trinkets or toys or talk to them or be their buddy, invite them around my house, like, hey, I'm your friend. I'm going to give you this. I don't want the things around my house at all, ever.
Sit down and play the fiddle together,
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the difference there. I mean, my mama, she's got a spot. She throws table scraps out pretty constant. And the foxes, gray foxes, there's a bunch of them around their house. They come and get the table scraps. I have actually killed during the season, because I predator hunt. I've probably killed 3 dozen gray foxes right there under the light from the garage where she dumps those table scraps just after dark, because the gray foxes real quick that's part of their routine every evening is go check out that spot. I mean, because you're talking about a gray fox. I mean, you're not talking about some super high intelligent primate or, you know, they just real quick learn that's an easy, quick meal that they don't have to hunt or work for.
Well, yeah, and you know what? Why to them? Why burn the calories when we can?
Yeah,
go
just
right
go straight there and fill up.
Exactly.
And there have been cases there's cases in my area where I believe that Bigfoot type creatures were involved as far as snatching chickens, gardens, you know, just because certain details about it just wasn't normal as far as, I mean, like being in enclosures that you physically had to open with your hands and close back.
Yes.
But say, I mean, my cousin of mine a few years ago lost 26 chickens in one night. Not a feather, not a drop of blood. No damage to the chicken house. Just 26 chickens just disappeared one night. It's never happened again.
That's it.
But they wouldn't come back too many times because somebody's going to get keen real quick. They're like, where's my chickens going? To start watching and looking.
That ain't a fox doing that.
No.
That's not even a couple coyotes.
No.
You know,
Gary, you remember when we interviewed my buddy about a year ago that mentioned he had been doing it for a while and he stopped and he walked out to his chicken coop and all his chickens were gone and they were scattered all over the field.
Yeah.
I don't know if you. Yeah. And now they hadn't been eaten; they were just killed. And that right there translates to me.
That is an emotional thought response of retribution.
Yep.
That a typical wild animal is not going to, a fox or a coyote is not going to do that. Once the food's gone, they just leave. You're talking about something that's intelligent, emotional, that once it thinks it has some kind of bond with us and all of a sudden you cut that off, they're going to get upset about it and they're probably going to act out against you basically a vengeful way.
Absolutely.
You know, something a lot of people don't think about. I mean, let's just go out and feed birds. You know, you put suet out, all right? You put out this bird seed and it's got freaking black tar sunflower seeds in it and so forth. Well, guess what? I mean, squirrels eat that stuff. Raccoons come in and eat that stuff. I put a string of cranberry beads out because it's December. Popcorn, and people put this stuff out for birds. And I do. I try and feed the birds between the house. I've got some big raccoons that come through here. Luckily enough, I haven't seen any big footprints, but that is also food and that is gifting. It just depends upon how the species sees it. So, you know, feeding the birds could get you in trouble too. They get that great big sliding glass window knocked out, and you know that you'll love to watch those birds out, you know, outside it. It could happen. It can happen.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Israel.
Sorry.
No, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, Gary.
I'll let Israel talk. I can chime in right on this tail end.
Yeah, Israel, what are your thoughts on this, man?
Besides everything you said, I'd be worried about exposure. Exposing them to the potential people who would harm them. Because like you said, the person that lives in that house, they would have good intentions to bond, theoretically, right? Even if we're saying that we shouldn't be bonding, but if that person has that mentality, but then if they move out, you know, that bond just went away, and then you're exposing that creature to somebody that could potentially harm them, kill them, just because he doesn't understand what was going on.
Yeah, or they're going to harm them. You know,
or they're going to harm them, yeah, or they're you know they're animals or stuff like that. Absolutely. So.
Well, actually, I've got a great example of that. This is with a white-tailed deer. A friend of mine's wife, I guess you could say, rescued a fawn. She kept feeding it, kept coming around feeding it. Well, it ended up it was a buck, and a couple years later, he's actually a decent 6-point buck. And she had put a blaze orange dog collar on the deer so nobody would shoot it. Well, one evening she heard a gunshot behind the house. Went out there looking around. Well, all she found was a blaze orange collar. Somebody shot that deer, took the collar off, left it, and took the deer with him. That deer famed to people, so I'm sure he probably just walked up to some guy hunting. He shot it.
Absolutely.
And that deer would have never done that naturally. Not to say he wouldn't maybe have gotten shot, but he had no fear of people, no fear of a hunter sitting in the woods. And that's just completely unfair to the deer to begin with.
It is. It is unfair. Yeah. Agreed.
Same
Collin, what do
idea.
you think? Sorry, Garrett. Or sorry, Travis.
No, you good.
Collin, what are your thoughts, man?
In my area, that's what we would call an asshole. But
yeah, it's a great way to put it, man.
Yeah. So, someone who would shoot a deer that's obviously been, gotten used to being around humans is that's just a jerk to me. You gotta have, unless they're just really desperate for food and stuff, and most people these days are not that desperate. So
it's all a trophy.
Yeah. That's kind of I'm working on some other stuff behind the scenes here.
He's our techie guy. He's a techie.
Yeah, I'm here more along for the ride today. Well, if I'm quiet, that's
Friday night we had that real long live show. Jeremiah, you got in on it.
Yep.
Collin was there. And this was one of the subjects that we kind of talked about there. But even just like John was saying, and all of you is actually saying, but let's say if you set a bird feeder out. And here's how the chain happens. You set a bird feeder out, birds come in. What does the birds draw in? Birds draw in cats. Cats draw in raccoons. They all start coming in. Then your bigger predators come in. And we inadvertently might even bring in, just like Travis was saying with a hunter, but we could even inadvertently bring in one of the target species.
Absolutely.
I gave you one here. We sat out, watching all these birds and so forth, setting out food for them. Of course, I took 9 cats out of here in 8 days, the feral cats and so forth like that. The town has my blessing. But we drew in hawks.
Okay.
Hawks would sit up on the rooftops and in the tree waiting for the birds to come in, which was kind of cool. That is the chain, is it not?
Yeah, it is.
That's the chain. So we kind of saw it in action.
Absolutely.
Until I got older and actually started doing research about the target species, I never really understood that this is not a new phenomenon. I mean, this has been happening with the First Nations people. And when I say this, habitualization, me and Jeremiah was talking about it the other day. A lot of your Native Americans, or let's say First Nation, to be politically correct, have been like, if they plant a garden, my grandmother did it, and people that for my generations back, they'd plant a garden for themselves and then plant a garden out in the woods for the animals.
Yeah.
And I kept asking her, why are we doing this? And she never would let me hoe that garden out there, work that garden. She would always work it, my grandfather, and they'd make me work the big garden. And she'd say that's for the forest animals. Well, I have to sit and wonder, when we're talking about this, where did this philosophy come from? Why did this happen? Well, habitualization. That's a for lack of better terms, that's a primitive form of habitualization. Yeah.
When you're backpacking, where do you hang your food? How far? How far away? That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, you got a garden hanging on a rope, a couple 100 yards away, right?
Well, even here, I mean, there's a lot of farming here, but even people that aren't like big time farming, I mean, I raise a garden myself. A lot of people do. Yeah. But even growing up, something we never did, we raised about a 5 to 6 acre actual garden. I mean, it's big. But you never raise a garden close to the road.
Yeah.
And the reason being, people will stop at night. They'll drop somebody off, run out there and snatch a few fresh vegetables and throw them in the car and take off with them. I mean, human beings will do that.
Yes.
So, and they're eating good. They just want fresh vegetables because you can't buy anything that's so fresh at the store.
Yeah.
Sure.
So why would why would an opportunist not?
Yeah.
Especially if you're just throwing it out there. And like John, you were talking about feeding the birds. My neighbor across the road, she throws bird seed out every day in her driveway. Just throws a couple handfuls out.
Yeah, it's like feeding chickens. It's everywhere. Yeah.
And I've got kestrels, sparrowhawks, kestrels.
Yeah.
Them dudes, I mean, they are hot through here all the time. because all these nice little cute birds out there just pecking away, and I've seen them fly through and pick one up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's like a watering hole in Africa during a drought. You're bringing all the game species of prey to one spot for easy picking for the predators.
Travis, you mentioned something there. It got me laughing to myself. So I'll share it. But you said that you don't want to put your garden up close to the road. Okay, and I get that, and I understand that. I've been raised in the country all my life. And still not done being raised in the country. This town's too big I live in. There's 500 people. My house is up for sale. I'm moving, But I've often laughed at the city folk that come out this direction and they get field corn thinking that they're going to have roasting ears. If no one has ever tasted field corn, oh my God, it is so fantastic. You'll always remember the experience. By gosh, just boil up a bunch of it. You're going to enjoy it. Yeah. It ain't the same, is it?
No, it is not. I mean, you can live off of it, but it tastes like dung.
It tastes like shit.
Yeah, it tastes pretty bad, and you'll grow horns, and you'll start counting with your hoof, right?
But the only thing I use that stuff for, outside of feeding my animals, is I'll make hominy out of it. Because by the time you swell it up and you add everything, it does add a little flavor, but still, it's good.
But it ain't like sweet corn.
Yeah. So now I will tell you something that I had heard, and it has to do with corn, and it has to do with here in Indiana, and I'm trying to remember the story. I want to get it as accurate as I can. It was told to me. Of course, your best friend knows somebody that knows somebody who's got an uncle, right? He was checking it out for Bigfoot, and he found several stalks of corn pulled out of the ground. Now, if anybody has ever tried to pull a stalk of corn out of the ground, I urge you to go ahead and try it. There were no footprints around this, which means he claimed that whatever it was, and I'm still, I'd like to know if he saw it. Whatever it was came by and snatched that corn up and pulled it at arm's length. No footprints around the corn. The corn was supposedly found back in the woods, 3 or 4 stalks of it. One ear was still there. That was, what do they call it? It's the black fungus. I can't think of the you know what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
All right. It had the shucks on the corn had teeth marks in it, like a horse's mouth had bit, but hadn't done much more than bit into the shuck on the husk on the corn and exposed that fungus. But the other ears of corn were gone, and that was the only one there. Now, could it have been a horse? Possibly. Yeah. Could the corn actually have been pulled from the ground with no footprints around it? If something was bipedal, you're going to see footprints right next to each stalk of corn that you attempt to pull, not that you will pull from the ground. So
that's interesting.
Just
a side story. Yeah.
That's interesting, though.
Was he certain that it was pulled up? I mean, was a root system attached to the corn, or was it just the stalks?
Yeah.
Never said that. Just said he found the stalks back in the woods.
Because I found one time I had found stalks of sweet corn in the woods, and it was strange to me. The only reason being that's not something you typically find. Like bears here, they'll sit in the corn, they just pull it over to them and eat on it. They don't take the stalks.
Yeah.
I found maybe a dozen or so stalks in one little area, and what's weird to me is it was in the cemetery where I had my last real good sighting at. And my brother-in-law this year found some of his sweet corn in his deer stand. It was taken up, whole stalks of corn were taken up into his deer stand. And he said, well, bear must be in the stand. I said, no, bears black bears here don't take corn with them. They literally sit down. Yeah. I've actually helped out some farming buddies of mine with my drone. You fly over the top of the cornfield and it looks like little crop circles, about 8 to 10 feet in diameter. Old bear, he'll go out there and just sit down. He literally just pulls the corn over to him and he just eats on the corn and he lays his stalks down as he eats on it. Usually he'll lay down and go to sleep. So you'll find what looks like little crop circles. And that's just bears eating the corn.
Yeah.
But to find actual stalks of corn taken into the woods, I don't have an explanation for that.
No,
it's
I have a tendency. It's a story, and without the proof or out seeing it, it's a story. It's just it's a story.
Stalks,
and what can you do?
Stalks I found and the ones my brother-in-law found, they were not uprooted because I know what you're talking about, John. Trying to pull up a stalk of corn. I mean, corn has a root system like a tree. It's
yeah.
I mean,
it's
corn
not
roots
easy.
down 2 to 3 feet. I mean, corn's aggressive, fast. The ones I found, the stalks were just pretty much wrenched off and broken.
Yeah.
And it was whole stalks laying and all the ears were gone and the stalks were left.
Even that's a big ass squirrel, to do that.
Yeah, that's a big bad squirrel.
That's a
fox squirrel.
But they get aggressive. No, that is strange, but that's either what we think or it could be somebody jacking with you. But what is that? How Occam's razor go? If the most obvious answer is probably it. I cannot think of what do they call it? Something or other's razor.
It's Occam's razor.
Occam's razor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Y'all brought up a real good point. About 2 years ago, I did a interview with a biologist by the name of Danny Nadrelio. And some of y'all know him. Well, we talked. He travels all over the nation taking reports and stuff, and we got into a discussion about target species sightings in the Midwest, Indiana especially. And I always told him, I said, it's funny that a lot of folks say they don't see them out there. I said, but it's the perfect habitat for the simple fact you have all the farmland with the corn, and you usually have the hardwood bottoms in the creeks. So they can traverse through the creeks. And the reason you don't see them and you don't hear a lot about them is because their food sources, their protein sources along the creeks. But they can sneak right up into the middle of a corn patch, like you said, strip off all the corn they want, head right back out, eat it, and nobody thinks anything left of it.
There's fields right up to the creeks here.
Absolutely. A perfect environment for them to come across there. I myself, if I'm in a survival situation, it's going to be easier to survive that myself. You don't think if you're not hungry enough, you're not going to go shuck off some corn, some field corn and eat? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love corn. You can ask Collin right here. We've done it many a time. I'll take corn straight off the cob, shuck it, peel the worms back, and start chowing into it. Because it's freaking delicious,
Yeah. Raw corn's good. I like it.
I love it.
Well, and the thing is, that's interesting about finding whole stalks of corn in the woods. All right, so a bear, he's going to sit there and a bear's lazy. He's going to sit there and eat. Why would he go anywhere with it? He'll do it at night when nobody's around. Coons, they climb a stalk and they just skin it over and pull it to the ground, eat it right there on the spot. They may take an ear now. I have found ears of corn that I think that raccoons have taken. A squirrel typically is just going to climb up there and just eat it right on the stalk because the stalk will hold him up. Deer will stand there and eat it right on the stalk.
Yeah,
and you've got footprints.
Exactly, you got footprints. But to find whole stalks of corn taken from the field into the woods, then eaten on, that's a little bit more.
Yeah,
there's a little bit more thought behind that, more of a process. Like, I want to get out of this field, but I'm going to go right here in the wood line, do my thing, and I can haul freight if I need to.
Yeah. I've even seen cows or bulls, come in and use their neck and bend them over to the point that they can get to a corn stalk. But something like that, that's, folks, I'm sorry, it takes opposable thumbs.
Yeah. And you'll always have footprints on any of those critters that you mentioned. They got to get to the stalk, eat a little raccoon. So whatever, they got to walk up to it.
Something interesting that my great uncle had happened several years ago. He actually got a kill permit from his state to spotlight deer at night. He raised tobacco. The deer were actually coming in and chewing the tobacco leaves. Yeah. They chew on them, gum them up real good, spit them out.
Yeah.
And we know it was deer because there was deer tracks loaded, and it was always just the rows along the edge of the woods. And they
What's
were
the purpose for that,
wrecking.
Travis? The
I
nicotine
think
and the tobacco, the energy, or what?
Well, tobacco, before it actually browns on the stalks, this was still green tobacco. It has a lot of gum in it.
Oh.
And I don't know what they were getting out of the gum. I think it probably is kind of sweet. Don't get me wrong, I ain't never tried it because, I mean, just gum from tobacco will break your skin out.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, these deer had decided they liked just the gum, and they were literally taking bites and tearing pieces of leaves, chewing them, and then just spit the. I mean, we found the pieces of leaves chewed up, but they were getting something out of the tobacco leaves that they liked. And that's the only time I've ever heard of that. I've never heard of anybody else around here having trouble with that.
This is not.
I got a good one. I got a real good one for you. Sorry, John. I got to tell you all this.
Do it. Yeah.
You know, up here they decriminalized the ganja grass quite a bit, and you know, a lot of people up here like to grow their crop every year, and believe it or not, the deer, they get right into it and they love it, and they will eat. They eat the shit right out of it, and I don't know. They do.
See a bunch of deer standing around going.
And that's it. I don't know if they're doing it for a nutritional reason or if they're doing it to catch
a buzz.
I don't know. I mean, it's a good question, but they eat the shit. I've heard many stories. They eat the shit right out of it.
They probably are, because here they haven't legalized it, but they are growing medical hemp.
Same, yeah.
It doesn't have any THC in it.
No, just CBD.
Yep. Yeah, and the deer don't fool with it.
Yeah,
they don't get nothing for it.
Interesting.
It's habit forming, right? It's biological form, and it's
a forerunner, as we were told.
It's a habit forming. But the thing about tobacco, you know, Travis, you said that you had not ever heard of that before. There's a movie called The Yearling, and I can't remember if it's Gary Cooper or Cary Grant or
Cary
all right. And one of what I'm hitting on is the age of that movie was back in the 50s. All right.
Oh yeah,
I've seen that movie, but I was a kid. I don't remember it very well.
Same here.
The deer gets shot. Mama, I think that's why the mother kills the deer in the movie. I think that's what happens, because the deer gets into her crop of tobacco. Now, if it's in that movie, it's not an unheard thing.
There's a history behind it.
Yeah.
And like I say, that's the only time. I mean, I know there's a lot of tobacco farming around here. It always has. I grew up on a tobacco farm.
Yeah.
But that was the only time I ever heard. I mean, it probably happens more than you know about. People just don't see it. It just got so bad with his crops, and maybe it was just this particular herd of deer. It just got a taste for it. But they were like causing serious damage to like this mid-year green tobacco. The ground leaves hadn't even turned yet, and they were just tearing these plants up all the way around the wood line. They wouldn't go way out in the field. It was just like a row or two from the tree line. They were just mopping this tobacco up.
We need to get a veterinarian on the show. We need to get a veterinarian on. Yeah.
I know a couple. I might be able to make that happen.
Yeah, too. Yeah.
That would be cool.
Yep.
Israel, what are your thoughts, man, with your scientific background on the whole tobacco, marijuana thing with the deer? Let's hear it.
I don't know, man.
If you got them, smoke them, right? No.
I can only tell you what it did to me before the army.
Fair enough.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough.
I got 3 more years, and then I'll tell you again how it feels.
A little bowie wowie. Huh?
Yes, sir.
He is honest. You gotta give him that. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Who brought up the feral cats earlier? Gary, it was you, wasn't it? Both of you guys did.
Yeah, I did too. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I told you guys. I told Israel and John, Gary. Remember I was telling you the old lady? I told Stacy. I said we would hear these things if we didn't have 200 feral cats in this friggin' neighborhood. We lived in a really rural neighborhood down there, and they were all over the place, and people were throwing their shit over people's fences, and the feral cats were coming in. And at night, you would hear, you know, the noise a female cat makes when she's getting it from the tom. Well, this would sound almost similar, but at the end, it would sound like it was getting the friggin' life squeezed out of it. Now, that was a perfect point earlier. You bring in, you know, the feral animals start coming in. You're going to start bringing in the predators.
Yep.
And that's all there is to it. I mean, it's a very simple concept, and why people don't get that, it's beyond me. Now, the whole gifting, you know,
well,
it's just something I never got into.
Back in the old days, before we had trash collection as sophisticated as it is now, you remember when you had just like your old trash dumps?
Yes.
Did you ever go down that night with your daddy, your uncle, with a spotlight and a 22 and shoot rats?
Right, absolutely.
Rats. I mean, just like you throw a light on and it was like 50 pairs of little eyeballs looking at you.
Yep.
You know, I mean.
Oh boy.
I mean, you know, if you put the food out, something's coming to eat it. I mean, that's all there is to it.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
you know what? I got a great example. This was back during the summer. Me and my little girl Evelyn, we just went walking down in the field behind my mom and daddy's, down below the garden and all. And this where they are, there's a lot of houses around. There's a shopping center through the woods. It's a good piece of land. But my little girl spotted it and she said, "Daddy, what's that?" It was a catfish head, wide as my hand, with the backbone and the 2 pec fins.
Where's the closest creek? That's the first thing I'd ask.
About 3/4 of a mile.
Okay, so that was like a trash heap or
No,
in?
this is just laying right there in the field,
just
next
there
to the woods. Just there is a pond about 700-800 yards away.
Yeah,
but it wasn't anywhere near a water source, or you know, it may have been where a bird caught it and sat in a tree and ate it and dropped it when it was done. But still, it was an odd thing, you know.
well, you got eagles. You got eagles. The thing about a catfish is,
we actually have eagles and osprey.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, we have wicked problem with the ospreys up here. You can't kill it. You can't kill a bird of prey. You know. Getting a lot of trouble for that. But
that's the same thing here. But you know, a catfish doesn't really come to the surface that often now, do they?
No, they don't.
Come on, I'm not a great fisherman, but I know if you throw that hook in, on the bottom, you're going to catch a turtle, catfish, or a carp or sucker, and they're all edible, you know.
Sure.
But for it to be caught by a bird, it would have had to been drug out, and maybe a bird pick it up and drop it because it's too big for it to carry for any great distance.
Absolutely.
Get it away from the water, get it away from the common source of hydration. Excuse me. But I'm just thinking of ways of how it could have been there. I'm certainly not finding that it didn't. I'm not going with that. That's not. But I'm just wondering what could have possibly brought that far, 3/4 of a mile, or 700 and some odd feet from a water source. Because you know they'll stay in ponds. I mean, they're in ponds.
Sure.
Oh yeah, all the ponds around here are stocked. You know, they're stocked with brim, crappie, bass, catfish, carp. You know, suckers, shiners. It's just the point I'm getting at is, animals travel, food travels. You've got opportunistic hunters, and scavengers for that matter.
Yeah.
So you never know what's out there rambling around, moving around. No. I mean, I had never seen an osprey here because I'm a good ways from the coast. I'm about a 3.5 hour drive from the coast. And this year is the first time I've ever seen osprey here. And I've seen them here at my house. I've got 2 ponds near my house. And all of a sudden they're here.
Yep. We got them here. Yeah. Because we got the St. Lawrence River right down the road. So
in the wintertime, we actually have seagulls that come in.
We do too. Yeah. Because of the St. Lawrence, Lake Champlain. Yeah.
And I guess what I'm getting at is your whole food chain.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, you start feeding anything in one place, you're bringing everything eventually. If you keep the food coming, everybody's going to show up for a bite.
Absolutely.
Even if it's what you're feeding or what's eating and what's eating that and what's eating that and what's eating that.
Huh?
You know, so.
It's right down the line.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And the black bears here now have gotten so populated and so brazen. I know people's had them in the back of their, I mean, they've actually walked outside in the mornings, one in the back of the pickup truck going through trash bags. They didn't dump the trash, you know.
Yep.
So
you can always, you mentioned the dump earlier, you can go to the dump around here at night, shine a light, and you'll see bear. You know, during summer, picking away at the garbage. And why not? You know, if you're a bear, you know, why not?
Oh yeah.
It's there.
That goes all the way back to what, you know, we initially were talking about.
Yep.
You start putting food out intentionally and especially gifting to say it's okay for you to come eat the food because I want to be your friend.
Mm-hmm.
You've broken a barrier there that they probably would never cross.
Oh, yeah,
they don't want to be seen. They don't want to interact until you possibly say, hey, I want to interact with you. I'm safe. You can show yourself at least to some point to me in my home, my family. And now you've endangered yourself, your whole family, your home, your pets, your property.
And for the next family to move out.
I mean,
yeah,
and,
you're right.
And there's going to be people that are going to disagree with us entirely, totally.
Oh, absolutely.
They have a habitual area that they are putting out and gifting, and these wonderful, hairy forest giants come in and give them hugs and kisses. You know.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Yep.
I
stretching the leather.
I just don't understand it. I mean, it's like you said, it's people have their prerogatives, and it's just not my friggin' cup of tea.
I mean, to me, it's like throwing out food for a grizzly bear.
Yep.
You just showed them when you hold out an apple to a grizzly bear. You've just showed an 800-pound predator where his next food source is going to come from.
Sure.
Yep.
And that's how people. And I'm not trying to be one of those boogeyman spooky. They're all horrible, blah blah blah. But I don't believe grizzly bears are all spooky, horrible. But I'm not going to go out in the woods and start feeding one to come around the house.
Right.
You know, I don't want that anywhere near me. You know, I want to stay way up on the mountain somewhere.
How do you say hello to a grizzly bear anyhow, you know?
Good question.
I know how I do it. Hey, bear, and run the other way.
Yeah. I think John Denver had a song about that or something like that. How do you say hello to a grizzly? Anyway, yeah.
I mean, shit, I think in the past, I've probably inadvertently done it. You know, I may or may not have done it in the past. You know, maybe treating the deer to a few apples here and there. But, you know, that wasn't not right next door to the house. That was back in the woods a ways, you know, but.
Jeremiah, what did you put behind a rock?
I did. I brought my own
put you on this. I'm gonna put you on the spot.
I am guilty.
It was an experiment. It was an experiment.
It was a scientific experiment, John. It was a scientific experiment. And for those of you that don't know the story,
how'd it go?
It was weird. I'll give it. I'll tell you. It was bizarre. When we were in North Carolina near that trestle, there was a spot. There was a big boulder of wood in front of this hole. All right, and you could pull it out. So I said, you know what? I'm gonna break my own rule here, and I'm gonna see what happens. Took a can of cat food. Okay, poked just a tiny hole in it, and it was one of the pry tops where you would need hands to take the lid off. You know what I mean? Not
same kind like on a Coke can or a beer can.
That's right. And I got the whole thing on tape too. You know, so I go back to check it a couple days later, and I could already tell. Second I walked up on it, I walked up that hill. I noticed things had been messed with. I said, well, what do you know? So I pull all that stuff out of the way, and I'm filming it all. And there's that can of cat food in that hole underneath that bridge. Half of it was gone, a little more than half. And I said, well, that's interesting.
I remember.
And you remember that, right?
I remember that.
And
you called me.
And I said, I called you right away. Yeah. I said, where's the lid? So I look and I see the lid. It had been thrown behind me. And best part about it is I had found a stick that was covered in cat food.
But you know what? It takes a thumb to get that lid off.
It does.
Well,
and that's
you know,
right?
I've seen
That's what I'm saying.
I've seen black bears open car
You're on it.
doors. I've seen raccoons do amazing things.
Oh,
If you
without a
actually
doubt.
pull the can lid completely off, toss it to the side, and then you have a stick that you've been that right there, that sets it way out of
Well, the fact that it was put back in the hole.
Put back in is what got me.
And the stone covering it, wasn't it? The stone was back in its place too.
Along with the wood jam, the couple of pieces of the wood that I jammed there to make it tight weren't put back in, but the stone itself was shoved back in there. You know,
that's got to be a really hungry homeless person,
a homeless person would have took it with them. They wouldn't have stayed there.
I think so too.
They'd have hauled freight. Yeah, they wouldn't have hung around because they'd be like,
they ate the whole thing
for a reason.
That's like they wanted a refill. You know, here, put it back. More.
Right. I didn't like tuna. Bring me
that's
halibut tomorrow or whatever.
That gets into gifting.
But
but what you did, I know you didn't do it again ever.
Didn't do it again. Never
ever will. I know.
Especially after I saw the results. No way. Nope.
And you found some pretty big footprints in that area as well, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
And you've got video of this, and you've got plaster casts. You've got dates.
Yeah, I do.
Time. You see, you've got the documentation, and you have
Israel.
Two witnesses besides you, right?
Yep. Stepdaughter, son. Israel, you'd have been proud of me on this project.
What'd you do?
It was all documented. That can of cat food.
Nice.
I'll send you guys the video.
That's the only.
Put back in there. It's interesting. You know, makes me wonder if they were like dog food better.
Yeah, that's the only way a photograph or a video will hold water. I mean, if you're going to present it to somebody, of course, this is another topic for another night. But a video, a photograph, no, just that. People do it all the time. Hey, look what I found. You know, nope. Unless you got documentation, don't even put it up. I mean, otherwise, it's just a video or photograph, and it might be real, but it's only good for whoever photographed it. It's only good for their recording and their reference.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Oh,
you did good on that.
Send an invite to Justin, guys. I'm gonna let him in here. Hold on. But yeah, that kind of was interesting.
How did it make you feel? I mean, did it make you
very weird? Very weird. Very kind of an indescribable feeling. If you will.
I'm guilty of gifting.
Yeah.
But I did this early on before I really got into this whole deal. This was years ago after we had that last really good sighting. I actually just took a few little toys, like kids' toys, and left them there. Now, when I say there, I'm talking about 12 miles from my house cross country. I mean, I have to drive like 20 minutes of back roads to get there. So I didn't do this right out in the woods behind the house. And I've never done it since, because I really started getting into the reading and stories and that sort of thing. And I was like, no, the more I thought, just me personally, the more I thought about it, I was like, I just don't think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really didn't get any reaction from it. I did go back and check, and I found some of the toys had teeth marks on them. But I think that was probably, honestly, I think that was probably like a possum or something. Just smelled, like my fingers touching it. They're small scratches, nothing suspicious.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just a fact. I mean, like with Jeremiah, I mean, I was watching him live in that swamp a couple of times, and things got a little sketchy. I mean, I personally watched one of them peek out behind a tree twice at him.
You did.
Yeah.
You told me.
And he was getting paced and circled and followed and found footprints on his way out that weren't there on his way in. So they were getting real accustomed to him being there, and they were getting more and more brazen with his presence.
They were, especially in that particular spot, they were getting really bold. Yeah, they were. And they didn't care. They weren't sneaky about it either. Like when that particular point, they were still at that point where they were trying to be a little sneaky, but it got to the point where they would just stomp and just let me know, hey, we're here. You know, they got to the point where they didn't care. You know, they didn't care if I knew they were there. They didn't care.
Did they care about you being there? I mean, that's something I
had Travis, remember the night, I don't know if you were on me that night when I had a boulder. I was sitting at the bank of that river. It was just getting dark, and had a boulder come flying. And this happened twice, okay? Once on top of that trestle with my stepson, my stepdaughter. We had one come from the front, boom. And I'm telling you, it had to have been massive because it's one of those, Gary, you and I talked about it, where you can hear it hit the stones on the bottom, you know? One come from behind, and the same thing happened to me before that when I was by myself along that river, and that was even a lot longer launch. And yeah, I don't think they liked me being there. That was kind of a little bit of an aggressive.
Was it like a football size or a grapefruit size?
It was bigger than that. It was bigger than
basketball size.
That's basketball. Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Shit. Yeah.
And it launched with ease. You know, and you're talking at least 60 feet across that river.
If anybody wants to try the strength on it, go pick up a medicine ball and try and throw one.
Yeah, not gonna happen.
I can tell you this: you take a cubic foot of granite rock, weighs 168 pounds on the average.
Right.
So a cubic foot of granite weighs 168 pounds. So yeah, just pick that up and lob it over in the river.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Man's not gonna do it. No way.
No.
Hey, Justin, what's up, man? Justin, you there?
Did we lose him?
He's got his microphone muted.
It might take him a second.
Yeah.
There we go.
But yeah,
there he goes.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
We'll fill you in real quick. Justin, we got me and Gary, John. I don't know if you met Israel yet. Israel, this is Justin. Guy I've been working with a long time in this field. Got Collin. Collin's a phenomenal tech guy. Met him with Gary, good man. I think Travis, of course. We're just talking. We got into the whole gifting and feeding topic tonight, and our opinions on it. And I think we were all pretty much on the same page on this one. So, what are your thoughts?
I think it's stupid.
Well said.
If one man calls you an ass, pay him no mind. But if two men call you an ass, it's time to go buy his saddle.
Yeah, right. So, I just like mentally, like if you don't understand what's going on, it sounds like a great idea. Hey, I'm gonna make friends. I'm gonna feed them. You know, I feed the deer, I feed the squirrels, whatever. But anybody that's spent any time studying this subject understands that just doesn't work with these guys. It's a totally different ballgame. I don't know how many reports I've read of where people consistently feed them and then for some reason they stop. And these guys, I mean, pardon the pun, they go ape shit, right? I mean, literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
I've heard, yeah, right. I've heard stories of them killing people because they stopped getting the food that they wanted. You know, so it's just a really bad idea. It's counterintuitive to most people, but.
Justin, I got a question for you.
Sure.
With what we were talking about, I kind of opened it up about like regular animals and brother-in-laws and homeless people. All right, you were in the Amazon. You were raised there until what? You were 9 years old?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. The indigenous people,
Sure.
All right. I'll ask it that way, and then I'll ask it like, okay, feeding a monkey. Is that let's go feed them to bring them home and be friends with them, or is it like, let's bait them so that we can kill them and eat them?
Neither.
Neither.
Both, maybe.
Yeah, they didn't use baiting. They would track down a troop and we'd shoot them with blowguns out of the tops of the trees.
All right.
Or if we had some shotguns, we'd shoot them down. There was no baiting. It was all stock hunting.
Why not bait? I'm asking it that way because of the people that like to gift and feed Bigfoot. Why wouldn't you bait a monkey? Why wouldn't you set out food for him?
I don't know. Honestly, like why didn't they do it? I don't know. That's just not how they did things, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't waste food for one.
Yeah.
You know, that's food they could eat. Why feed the monkey that I can eat it?
Yeah, that's
I mean, that's how they think of it, and they were stealthy enough hunters where they would just go hunt them. They didn't have to bait anything. And you don't know what you're going to bring in if you're baiting. You could bring in 20 different things. You may not get what you want in the first place.
All right. Are monkeys or are being primates? That's why I'm asking. When I say monkey, it's kind of a generalization. But are they not opportunists? And if they are, what did they get into around a village? And if they didn't come into the village, how were they kept out?
So the monkeys that we had down there, man, they were 99.9% of them were canopy dwellers. They did not come down to the forest floor on a regular basis at all. You know, they're not the baboon types. They're not the macaques that you see in the videos over in Japan and stuff. These guys are canopy dwellers. So, like, they didn't come down to the ground. And, you know, the Indians that we had were pure nomadic. They didn't have a set village type thing. And so they were never around. Like, if there was a troop of monkeys, it's because you heard them and then you would go find them. You know, we didn't have an issue. We didn't see monkeys all over the place. And it wasn't just, look in the tree, there's a monkey. You know, we were way too wild for that.
Them being nomadic, they never really would habitualize species to coming around like their home site to really scavenge or, you know.
Correct. What they did do, okay, so here's an interesting fact. If they killed a female monkey that had a baby on it, because usually what they would do is the babies would cling to the chest of the mothers. And the way they hunted them is they used curare poison on blow darts. Yeah. And so
where does that come from?
The curare comes from a specific plant in the jungle. I can't remember if it's a tree bark or if it's a root. Yeah, I'm thinking it's a root.
That's a root.
And what it is, it's not like in the movies. It's not an instant death thing. It's a paralytic. And what it would do, it would paralyze them. They'd fall out of the trees, and then they'd go up to them and they'd club them with something, or they'd break their necks, or they'd strangle them because they were paralyzed. But if the infant survived the fall, they would keep the infant as a pet.
Okay.
I use the term pet loosely.
Because for dinner.
You might eat your pet.
That's exactly what it was. So basically, if it came down to it and food was scarce, then it was a portable food source for them.
Yeah, we don't have refrigeration, but we got a pet. Yeah,
exactly. And that's exactly what it was.
I mean, it's kind of the same thing. People raising hogs, cows.
Yeah.
Livestock.
Like, guess where I was going with this was the opportunistic animal that might be in the Amazon. I figured that, you know, we're talking Bigfoot being a primate, I would mention it that way. But is there not an opportunist type of animal that is in the Amazon? One more so than another that you could think of.
Jaguars, right? I mean, you're opportunistic.
Yeah, I mean, we had jaguars. They're opportunistic. We had wild hogs. Those were opportunistic, but they weren't common around us. Yeah. So we didn't really have a lot of interactions with them, really.
Well, you wouldn't want to leave your food out or anything out that
correct. Yeah, the
food
was kept locked up and stored, right? And the big thing is, you never knew what you would bring in.
Yeah.
Right.
But I can't pinpoint a specific thing. You know, it's not like, oh, don't leave your cooler out, the bears will get it. We didn't really have anything like that.
Well, the other thing too, I mean, I kind of feel like may weigh in on this, is these people were not just nomadic, they were extremely adept hunters, and pretty much any protein was game.
That would make them opportunists.
Yeah, and I feel like that would keep a whole lot of things away, because animals do learn quick who's eating them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, I know growing up on a farm, this is back in the day, but growing up on a farm, any type of pest, predator, something that was after the chickens, getting in the corn house, getting in the garden, it didn't matter what kind of season it was, they got eliminated quick.
Oh, absolutely.
We were very productive at trapping, shooting, killing. We had dogs out all the time. We kept things away from the house, everything, to protect our food, our goods.
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like these people would definitely have to do so, considering just the environment in itself.
They hunted every day, man. They didn't have a storage technique. They were truly nomadic hunter and gatherers. They didn't farm. They literally spent most of their time hunting and gathering fruit. That's just what they did all day. They didn't really store stuff, right? They didn't have dogs unless they got them from somewhere else. Like if they raided a jungle village or something like that, maybe they would get a dog, or if we gave them a dog.
What do you mean by that, Justin? Raided jungle village, like a jungle village of more domesticated, I don't want to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say it that way.
No, it's okay, you're fine, Rob.
More,
you know what I mean, right?
Westernized.
The truth is, it was mostly the coqueros, the cocaine growing operations out in the jungle.
Okay.
Is usually what it was. They would sometimes come across them out and raid them. And most of the time, most of the Indians would get shot, so they wouldn't do it because coqueros would just shoot them on sight.
Shoot them on sight.
Or they would catch some of the diseases and stuff from them.
Oh, I bet.
So they're watchdogs. So they'd pick up their watchdogs, so to speak.
Rarely, rarely.
No,
very rarely.
Okay.
But the thing to understand, because of their environment, how they were raised, they didn't really need dogs. They could hear the animals moving through the jungle, right?
Absolutely.
And they had monkeys, and they would have 5 or 6 monkeys hidden around the village with them, and then so they could alert if something was going on.
What type of monkey was the biggest? The howler? Or, sorry, Travis, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it depends on how we're measuring biggest, right? So if I'm talking the bulkiest, like bulldog of a monkey, that's going to be the howler monkeys. Generally, the male black howlers.
They can get quite aggressive, can't they?
They can be very aggressive. Yep. But again, they're canopy dwellers.
Okay.
And when I say canopy, we're talking 200 feet up in the air. We're not talking a 50-foot tree here. Yeah. The canopy isn't 50 feet above our heads.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the second biggest one, or the tallest and most muscular one, was, we called them cherucos, the gray woolly monkeys, or the cherico monkeys. And they were a common food source for us.
I find it really interesting they were using the monkeys kind of like we do guard dogs.
Yeah.
Because I watched a really I watched a good documentary.
Side effect,
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm getting, I watched a really good documentary years ago in India. I can't remember the species of deer that's a primary food source for tigers. Well, the deer would watch the monkeys because they were typically eating in kind of the same areas, and the monkeys, there's just their eyesight and senses, and it was so many more eyes, they would spot a hunting, stalking tiger, and they would go crazy, go up the trees. Well, that means deer run. And I've actually
they set off their alarm calls.
Yeah, and I've witnessed this myself, deer hunting with gray squirrels.
Yeah,
gray squirrels see something, they run up a tree, go to barking, and the deer haul freight, because deer don't even know what it is, but they know the squirrel saw something.
Exactly. Or blue jays, right? Like blue jays are the
birds too.
Yeah, blue jays. Yep.
Same concept. I mean, when you're out there, you're listening, and if you hear the parrot squawking, then something's up. If you hear the monkeys giving a shout out, if there's some around, something's up.
I'm this whole topic we're talking about, just the similarities between species.
Yeah.
It's just so many between even from all the way down to small birds, all the way up to us to what we're really talking about. I mean, it's really interesting how nature works.
It is.
So many people are just not aware of it, and
or they have.
That's the problem.
To me, what's worse than that is they have their the presumptions of how they think it is, and that's even worse because they've already made up their mind and they're not open to what the reality is.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, I hear a lot of stuff like that. Like a perfect example is piranhas. Okay, everybody's like, "Oh my God, piranhas! They didn't eat you alive, right?" And it's like, yeah, no, they don't do that. They just don't. You know, like, okay, yes, in a dry season, if there is a huge school of them and they haven't had food for a week and something falls in, they're going to tear it up. I mean, that's just how it is. But 90% of the year, there's no issue with them. I've swam with them thousands of times, and I fish for them, and they're freaking bluegills with sharp teeth. That's really all they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we'd catch them and eat them like panfish. I mean, that's but everybody's like, "Oh my God, piranhas! Like, how did you survive?" It's like, pretty easy, man.
I hear they're pretty good and tasty. Are they?
Well, I hate fish, but I used to eat it because that was what we ate, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're freaking bony bluegill, and they taste like bony bluegill, like a bony panfish.
Huh.
And their bones are so small and brittle. But all my dad would do is gut them, and sometimes cut the heads off, sometimes not. And we'd fry them up, a little bit of cornmeal or whatever, and fry them up in a pan. That was it.
Very cool. Wow.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
There's so many different species of them too, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. And some of them don't even eat meat. There's one called the pacu, which is a big giant silver one with the big crazy freaking fangs, and they eat fruit that falls into the water.
Wow.
You know? So
skewer the fruit with your fangs and suck it out.
Basically, I mean, mango falls into the water and they're chewing on a mango, you know. It's you know, we swam in the lakes with the anacondas and the caimans and stuff, and we never the closest I remember coming is we had one guy, we were fishing at a lake called Lopez Lake. It was way out in the Llanos in the pasture land. And he was out there snorkeling and skin diving with spear fishing basically. And he noticed that he had swam over this area where there was a bunch of logs. As he's looking, he realized that they weren't logs. It was like 5 or 6 big anaconda.
No.
And they had kind of, while he was out there, they kind of surrounded him. But all he did was take notice and swam away. You know, like we never had a problem with that. Wow. You know, were we cautious? Of course, you know. This lake was so full of fish that the adults got tired of fishing. And so they started spear fishing, and my dad would use like a Hawaiian slingshot or an air-powered spear gun or whatever. And I remember one time he was pulling me with they call them a float tube. A big tube, and it's got this special seat in it that you can go fishing in, and you have all this stuff. Well, he was pulling me with it. And I remember I was kicking, I had fins on, and he stood up and told me to kick myself wide. And so we went around, and that was it. Well, I asked him what had happened, and he said he had swam over about an 8-foot caiman. And he just didn't want me going over and disturbing it with my fins. That was it. Like he said, he was even tempted to go down and spear it with his spear gun, but he decided not to because if he got a bad shot, he didn't want to be out in the lake with me with a pissed off 8-foot caiman.
Right.
Justin, for those that are listening in and viewing, tell them what a caiman is.
A caiman is like it's a crocodilian. It's like an alligator.
Yeah.
And they're really cranky.
Yeah.
Is basically the best way to describe it. They're aggressive and cranky.
I had 2 of them I bought from a pet shop. Used to be able to buy them here.
Yeah, we actually had a pet one too.
They were like, I don't know. They were probably, 10, 12 inches long.
That's how in New York was John. That's what it was.
I didn't know we were recording. Are we recording?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're
This is all good, buddy. Yeah, good information.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah.
All ties in together, man. All ties in
I
together.
forgot that part. That's all right.
Yeah,
But
we
yeah, I
just
mean,
need your face. We need your face on here, but
Nah, you don't want that. That'll drive away the people.
I don't know. Jeremiah and I are here. So.
I mean, I show mine, so I think we're doing all right.
No.
So.
Well, if I get in, I get the laptop set up. I'll turn on the camera for everybody.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. There you go.
Look, we got Israel. We got Israel to offset all the bad looks. That's what he's here for.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we forgot about Gary's mug.
Y'all got that covered. I forgot all about that.
Yeah, well, take care of it. Oh, thank you. Jeez, that's better already. We do that to our bird cage.
Yeah. Well, guys, that was I think that went pretty well. I think we got our point across pretty good.
Hey guys,
You know,
it's
not a smart idea. You know, I know people have their beliefs and whatever.
I think it's ridiculous.
I do too. I do too.
You know, it's better, as they say, it's better to give than to receive. Not
not in this case.
No, just let them give to you once, just once. Yeah.
You're receiving your decapitated head back.
Have you ever gone? I got to tell you this. Have you ever gone to a zoo where the monkey will pick up feces and throw it at you?
Oh, they do that anyway.
Oh yeah, I had a buddy.
They do that in the jungle.
Oh yeah, a buddy of mine would pick it back up and throw it back at him.
Oh man.
Huh? Who?
I had one that used to go all over me.
Oh, yeah, his name was Gary, but not the same Gary.
Well,
but, yeah, he threw it back at him.
I'll tell y'all a funny story that was told to me years ago. So this would have been back in probably the early mid-'70s. The local county fair here, there used to be a guy that came through that had a chimpanzee that you could pay $5 to actually get in the ring and wrestle with this chimpanzee.
Oh, good Lord. There's a
bad idea.
So the gentleman that was telling me this story he's actually my ex-father-in-law, and he was there when this happened. And he had a buddy, and I don't remember what they called him. He had a nickname, but apparently this guy was like, a drink machine. He was a big dude.
Yeah.
And he had been drinking, and they didn't talk him into wrestling with his chimpanzee. So he gets in there and gets wrestling with his chimpanzee. Well, man, he was a big guy, so he was kind of giving him a run, I guess. Chimpanzee was tame, and for him it was a game. But this guy was serious, getting kind of rough on him. And I don't know how good y'all can see me, but said that old chimpanzee done it right there. I said, just right in his face. Just give him a handful of it right in his face.
That is awesome.
This is probably the only. This is going to be the only time I'm going to tell it. And the way I tell it is, okay, when I was in high school, I was on the wrestling team, and they had at a place, I think it was called the Fisherman's Boat Sport and Travel Show, and it would come every year, and they had a bear. And this bear was declawed, and it had a muzzle on it, and you paid $5. Now we're talking back in the 1960s, and you pay $5 to get. If you can stay 3 minutes with that bear, you'd win $100. Well, when you're a kid and you're standing there with a Slurpee, and there's a couple of chicks, and your cousin is there. And you're like, oh, we're going to share the Slurpee with these two ladies and impress them and all. You look at a bear and you go, I'm going to sweep it. Jeremiah knows what I'm talking about. If you try and sweep a bear, you end up with this lower belly in your face.
Yeah.
All right. You just don't know at that point. You're like, is this a male bear? Oh, Lord. You can't wrestle a bear and win.
No,
okay.
No.
All right. Enough said.
No.
Yep.
Well, Justin, thanks for hopping on, man. I know we didn't have time with you, but hopefully as time was on, we enjoy listening to your stuff. So interesting, man, from your childhood.
It is
phenomenal. It's very interesting, man.
I could listen to that for hours, man.
It's awesome. It's just so fascinating.
And it parallels with what we're doing with Bigfoot.
It does. It does.
Yeah, a lot.
It does. It does parallel with it. Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
all that's really all we've got is parallels and and information like such. Yep.
That's it. Yeah. Well, everybody, hope you enjoyed it. That was episode 9, Skookum Session, season 2. So hope you all enjoyed the show. We'll see you next Sunday. Everyone have a good evening, and feel free to reach out. Just a kind of a remake on the YouTube channel, so check it out. A lot more work to do, but it's coming along. So everyone, y'all have a good evening, and be talking to y'all soon.
Merry Christmas to everybody, and remember why we got Christmas. You know.
Heard that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, fellas. Have a great evening.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.